What I can say is, having come from a family where I had an uncle who had Downs, we lost him last year to dementia and Alzheimer, but he lived an extremely fulfilled life, despite the fact that when we were growing up in the 70s and the 80s, there was very little or no support given to people with Down syndrome. And we never truly understood what his condition was, coming from an Asian background, because it wasn't one of those things that was understood or spoke about. At the same time, he had an extremely fulfilled life where he had a very large social circle. He married, he had a child, he became a grandfather before he died. So he had seen every possible opportunity, and when he passed away, he had almost 1,000 people attend his funeral just because of his own social persona.
Jonathan, you've advised people and counselled people who are in this situation, and seen both sides of kind of when it comes to the decision making and the agony that parents go through.
Yes, and I think the key word is that people have got the options, and there's no doubt that Down syndrome people can be fulfilled, and certainly children are just very loving and loyal and affectionate, but there's an enormous moral difference between a life that already exists and a life that's in potential. And therefore I think parents do have the right to know if their child has a Down syndrome, and some of them will decide to keep it, to love it to pieces. Others will say, no, actually, I cannot bring up this child, either on practical grounds, because I don't have the emotional or physical or psychological resources, or maybe some people will say on moral grounds, because what is the point of bringing into the world a child or adult that cannot sustain itself, that will never live independently? And I think we can allow parents to make that distinction, because they are the ones that are actually going to carry the burden and the responsibility. And yes, they may have a very happy household to begin with, but eventually they will have to give up that child to a care institution and worry themselves about not being able to visit and worry about what's going to happen after they've died. So there's a big burden we can't sort of very liberally discuss on behalf of people, when it's actually them who's going to have to look after that child.
Lynn, surely by informing adults, people who are entitled to make their own decisions, informing them, and for them to come to a conclusion that perhaps they're not adequately equipped to bring up a child with a disability, surely that's not wrong.
Key word there, information. Now, we've got two very different views on the couch there. One is a lived experience and the other one's a very outdated idea of Down syndrome, and that seems to be the one that's within the NHS. Many people are having terrible experiences in the screening system. It's a fact. Someone this year had a diagnosis at 36 weeks and was offered a termination.